Well, admitting his company's been in the news this week in a way no company wants to be, the president and CEO of RBC is making a public apology to the workers affected by the bank's outsourcing arrangement with a foreign company. The apology follows enormous backlash against the bank after some of its Canadian information technology workers complained they were being replaced by foreign workers employed by a company contracted by RBC. Now, iGate brought its own employees into Canada on temporary foreign worker visas so they could be trained at RBC. In a public letter today, Gord Nixon says, quote, "Despite our best efforts, we don't always meet everyone's expectations, and when we get it wrong, you are quick to tell us." He went on to make a number of commitments, saying, first, "I want to apologize to the employees affected by this outsourcing arrangement, as we should have been more sensitive and helpful to them. All will be offered comparable job opportunities within the bank. Second, we are reviewing our supplier arrangements and policies with a continued focus on Canadian jobs and prosperity, balancing our desire to be both successful business and a leading corporate citizen. Third, our Canadian client call centers are located in Canada and support our domestic and our U.S. businesses, and they will remain in Canada." All right, so let's talk more about the Royal Bank's response. They kind of got caught here in this outsourcing deal. Nick Bontis from, I was going to say the Bontis School of Business, but of course it's the DeGroote School of Business. Who knows what will happen in the future? Let's start first, the Royal Bank's response. What do you make of this one?
At least he came out today. But the problem here is
it
was very, very late. I mean, this issue is just as much about foreign workers as it is about the power of social media. The story broke out in the mainstream media on Saturday. It's Thursday today. That's way too long, especially when social media took over on Sunday. Gord Nixon had to be out ahead of this on Monday. The other issue, of course, is with regards to the commentary you heard in the letter, comparable jobs. I don't really know what that means. 45 people, in my opinion, Gord Nixon, you got to give those 45 people back their original jobs. This problem has just gotten too big. It reminds me of Johnson's & Johnson, Tylenol, and Maple Leaf Foods Listeria. Fix the problem, nip it in the bud.
Wow, you're really putting it in that category. Yeah. That's interesting. So let's talk, though, because a lot of companies we know, Nick, do outsource. How does this impact the Canadian economy, the outsourcing?
Well, the issue here is it's not about a Canadian economy anymore. Obviously, it's a global economy. But we have to figure out that there's a fine line. It's not a simple issue as good or bad. It's about an issue of gradation. Let me explain what I mean. Let's say that the foreign worker gets paid $20,000 to do a job, and the Canadian worker gets paid $30,000 to do the job. I, as many of you, would vote to keep the Canadian worker, even though he's more expensive, because we want to keep Canadian jobs in our country. But what if labor increases? What if the Canadian employer is $40,000 or $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000? And the temporary foreign worker is still only 20. The issue here is at what point in time in the incremental cost does a Canadian organization really have to consider foreign workers?
And of course the organizations, I suppose, have to respond to their shareholders as much as they do the Canadian economy. So it's a really vicious circle, and there's a lot more factors at play. Yeah. Let's talk, though, about the peer pressure, though. Is there peer pressure among Canadian companies to keep jobs in Canada?
Of course there's peer pressure. I mean, RBC actually is one of the jewels of the world of banks, and they're award-winning. They won one of Canada's top 10 corporate cultures as well back a few years ago. This issue, although might be interpreted as being small, it's still very serious. Let's not forget it's about 45 employees. They have over 50,000. It's 1/1000th of the organization. And I saw so much upheaval this week when you compare it, let's say, with a manufacturer in southern Ontario that had 300 or 400 employees, and it completely shut down, and the whole manufacturing process went down to Mexico, let's say, for example. We didn't hear that much press on a similar story, so very much a peer pressure story here.
Absolutely. All right, Nick, let's switch gears right now, because we also learned today that PCs have had their worst sales drop in the last 19 years. I believe one firm saying they're down 14% in the last quarter alone, and the same firm is blaming Windows 8 from Microsoft as part of this problem here. So are we finished with PCs? Are we moving on now to tablets?
We're moving on. 14% for a drop is a huge number, Nick. Now, it's kind of ironic that this is happening because for the longest time, the PC was powerful and the tablets weren't that powerful, and then we migrated over to the tablets. Now, Windows 8 launches a tablet-looking type of operating system, and people don't want to go back because their tablets are already strong enough. We also know that the future of smartphones is going to get very, very strong. So unfortunately, I believe, just like you, Nick, that a lot of people are not upgrading their PCs. My PC is 3 or more years older. I think you said that your PC is 3 years or older. If we ask any of you who are out there, they're probably going to say the same thing.
And I should admit that the next thing I'm looking at is probably going to be more tablet than PC. So interesting to see. Yeah. Nick, thanks for your insights, and I really do appreciate that.